What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Walkout Network. It's your man, Ant Walker, here with another edition of Unleashed, the weekly panel discussion show. And of course, we actually have another guest this time. Like we've been consistent with getting guests. And let's thank a guy. You've seen him on the show quite some time ago. It might have been actually on the original iteration of the show, not the version we do here on the Walkout Network. But Ed Carbajal, the man at My MMA News, and Sherdog. Ed, how you doing?
Good. Thank you for having me. It's been a while. I missed y'all.
Yeah, man, we just had like Twitter discussions about random foolishness, but it's good to actually have you back here on the show and we can talk about some fights. So, of course, we got to introduce the jack of all trades who's mastered them all, the senior editor of Sherdog.com, Mr. Ben Duffy. Ben, what's going on, my man?
Oh, I'm doing well. I don't know about the jack of all trades, but I could definitely master not having big fight cards every single weekend if they wanted to give me a couple more weeks to practice at it. Like I'm enjoying this just fine. Just I think I said this to Ed before we started taping. I just feel like I'm up out of the water and just taking a deep breath before, diving back in. So yeah, it's been a good week.
Yeah, definitely, man. So we got a nice little breather, and it feels great. But I know it feels fantastic to the man who's normally behind the ones and twos for Sherdog's play-by-play, the associate editor, my good friend Jay Petru. Jay, what's going on?
The number of major fights this weekend was 0, and that's fine by me because we need just a minute. So the stat of the week, appropriately, is 0, as in 2020. 0 defending champions lost their titles. 0. Not a single one that put their belt up for grabs lost it. And that is phenomenal. It hasn't happened since 1999. At that time, there were 3 weight classes: heavyweight, middleweight, which was 200 pounds, so light heavyweight, and lightweight, which was 170 pounds. So yeah, it's been a while since that happened.
Wow. Okay. So the champs at the time were Boz Rutan, Frank Shamrock, and Pat Miletich.
All right.
Am I right?
Yeah, I mean, there's the random and switch after Boz left, but yes.
Yes. Yeah. It was just right off the dome. I'm so proud of myself.
Bang, bang, bang.
All right, that's very, very impressive, Ben. But so we're going to divert a little bit from our normal outline because I do want to stick with that particular subject right there. 2020, no champions lost their belts in the cage. Do we think next year is going to be different, gentlemen?
It's it's interesting because there were a lot of title fights this year, and I almost was surprised by that. I mean, there weren't as many as the previous years because there were fewer fights on the whole, but there was still a solid amount that were out there. And despite that, not a single one changed hand. That is the stat of the week. That's a question it's worth discussing because 19 title fights happened. 19 title fights, that's a lot. And that none of them switched out. No champion said, I mean, there were, Cejudo said I'm out and Khabib said he was done, but just it's interesting to see the lineup of champions. You look at them and you go, boy, who's the weak one here? You have to think, I would have to think of all of them, it would have to be Peter Yan, who's the weak one. And I don't say that because he's a weak fighter, but his path to the bantamweight title was one of those things we talked about on this show many times about how fighters kind of zig and zag up the rankings, fighting, Jimmy Rivera after a loss and John Dodson after a loss and Jose Aldo after 2 losses and Uriah Faber when he's 40 and his chin has started collapsing in on itself. So it isn't a big, deadly contender rack to go through. I mean, on the Sherdog rankings, Peter Yan is not the number 1 bantamweight. There are multiple fighters ahead of him for good reason. Aljo Sterling, Cejudo is still obviously the top guy because, MMA retirements totally stick all the time. I don't think that will stand, but I wouldn't be surprised if there are maybe 1 or 2. Not many, but I can see it happening, yeah.
Actually, Ed, please, go ahead, Ed. Let me not take over.
Oh no, it's your show, so you do whatever you want. But
you're the guest.
The one thing, I mean, just to kind of piggyback on what Jay said, that as much as I like Deiveson Figueiredo as champ, I don't want to call him weak either. But I just feel like he had the stomach issue with the last fight. I know he fought back to back. He did 2 weight cuts, 2 in a row or whatever. Then he had the weight cut issue with the whole debacle of him and Benavidez doing it over again. I just feel like that it's going to be tough for him to hold on to that title, depending on how much time they give him. But I mean, I was trying to get over the weight cutting thing from before, but then now I said to myself, if he defends successfully, then I'm going to get over that. But then the stomach issue came out, that how he was in the hospital, and they carted him off after the fight. So I have a feeling he might not be able to hold on to that title. So I feel like if anything changed in 2021, that's the one I got my eye on.
Well, I will pop in and interject for something. Sherdog's Mauricio Alonso, OG, spoke to Figueiredo in his camp. Actually, it was before the Moreno fight, I believe, where they said, we know he has a hard weight cut. He's still young. He can still do it regularly. I mean, he messed it earlier this year, but he, at the time, 5 fights at flyweight is all he has left. And then so now 4 left, and then he's moved up to bantamweight. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he goes, this weight cut is too gnarly. Let's go fight Jose Aldo, because that's get weird, right?
Yeah, that's definitely a possibility there. I'd like to throw in a couple of names. John Jones' entrance into heavyweight certainly complicates that title picture. And despite whatever danger he might be facing against stronger men, I mean, it's still John Jones. We're still talking about, the greatest talent the sport has ever seen. So a weight class change may not mean that he has stopped his reign of dominance at all. So very interested to see what he does. But I also want to look ahead to the featherweight division. The Brian Ortega we saw absolutely dismantle Korean Zombie gives Volkanovski all sorts of trouble. I'm very much looking forward to seeing that fight. And quite honestly, as of right now, coin toss as to who walks away with that belt. Ben, who would you point to as a potential champion that could lose their belt next year?
Well, I swore after his last win that I would never underestimate or discount this man again. But there's only one champ in the UFC that is an underdog in his next title defense, and that's Jan Blachowicz. I mean, to be champ this time next year, Blachowicz might have to beat Israel Adesanya. Say Israel Adesanya, Glover Teixeira, Yuri Prohaska, something like that. Yeah. And for all we know, by this time next year, John Jones, like the man is going to have to navigate a minefield to still be holding his belt a year from now, assuming he's healthy enough to fight at least 2 times, maybe 3. So as much as I don't want to underestimate the guy, it's a tough ask for anybody. I mean, if John Jones were still the champ, we might be saying, hey, this is the year the field finally catches up with him. Because think of how close his last couple fights at light heavyweight were. No. So, yeah, it's a tough ask. So I'm not sure I'd bet on it. But, yeah, he's got a tough year ahead of him.
Definitely has a tough year. That was a good call. I mean, really, that's kind of the joy of mixed martial arts, that anything can happen, and we always go back to that cliche, but it's very true. We've seen stranger things happen, but I think the smart money is somebody is going to lose their belt in competition in 2021, depending on what sort of year is in store for us. God knows.
Watch out, Valentina Shevchenko, Jessica Andrade is coming.
I mean, hey, stranger things have happened. So
that's almost the last interesting fight left for her.
Yeah, quite frankly, yeah. And then they're going to try to push the Nunes trilogy on us like we really want to see that again. But whole nother story there.
Or if Nunes takes off a year or two to like have a family, maybe Val just steps up and becomes a 2-weight champ. Wouldn't you take Val over anyone else at 135 right now?
Yeah, pretty much.
I think she'd struggle.
I think her and GDR would be an interesting one.
That's the one I think she'd struggle with more than anybody.
GDR should move up and be the 145 champ while Nunes is gone.
And then give it back up.
Don't you reminded me of UFC 208 when you bring her up in 145. I can't. That was a dark mark on Brooklyn's.
That was my cousin's very first live UFC event.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, can't even imagine.
Yeah, I was there for that. I hate a lot. I blame a lot of bad things from that year on that event.
All right, fellas. Well, of course, it's kind of hard to mention mixed martial arts without the impact that COVID-19 has had across the sport. But one of the little things that was kind of lost in the shuffle, normally every summer, International Fight Week, it has the World MMA Awards, and that was something I know we voted on. I'm sure a lot of you watching and listening right now voted as well, but just didn't hear nothing about these results for a while because for obvious reasons there was no big get together to pass out these trophies. But among some of the more egregious ones, I think by now the story is out. The World MMA Awards aren't exactly very true as to who gets what and what's deserved and whatnot. So among the most egregious ones, in my opinion, was ESPN winning MMA Media Source of the Year. So let's just throw this out there as the swing or miss. And I'll kick it to you first, Ed. You swinging or missing ESPN as the number one MMA media source for the past year?
You have to remind me, swinging and missing is if I'm not with it. Either way, look, let me just answer you. Everybody knows Brett Okamoto is the guy now, right? It's not Ariel anymore. He's not on Dana's quick dial or whatever. It's Brett Okamoto, and these awards are I mean, it's a fan base thing. You put it out on the internet, people click on what they know, even if they don't know. If they run across it and they got some 10 minutes to kill in the day, they're going to click on whatever pops out at them. And I don't. I mean, in all honesty, like you said, this is something that it's a fan base thing. So I'm not surprised at any of the results or folks that are listed. And I mean, didn't Helwani win like 10 years in a row or something? Yeah. I mean, what does he do that's groundbreaking? Really? I mean, Kareem Zidane and all those guys are the ones that are like, you know what I mean? Like the ones that are digging in dirt and writing about stuff. Not these guys. So I mean, like you said, it is what it is. I actually didn't vote this year because I mean it's just fuck this year altogether. So
yeah, it's kind of weird this year because like the cutoff period for when they're considering was smack in the middle of pandemic stuff. So we've got so much more fights and so much more material to judge off of now that we may not have a clearer understanding of what was going on exactly at that point in time. I definitely want to talk just for a second about the Journalist of the Year award because I think we'd all be, pretty silly to sit up here and trash Ariel Helwani, considering what he's done, the work he's put in. He deserves every bit of success he has and the pile of money that I'm sure he's sitting on at ESPN right now. Congratulations. He deserves every bit of it and created the lane for a lot of us. But I mean, when you're talking about Journalists of the Year, I'm sorry, we're not having a real conversation when Michael Fidel was not nominated. We're not having a real conversation. We're not having a real conversation when Ariel gets the award over someone like Mark Raimondi, who at ESPN does much more pure journalistic work as well. And Brett Okamoto breaks more stories, and we're even within the ESPN sandbox, like we're having totally different conversations here. But as far as ESPN winning Media Source of the Year, it's kind of easy to do that when the main promotion is like your broadcast partner. Mm-hmm. It's a little easier to have that access. Like, I don't, are we just awarding whoever has TV contracts now with stuff? But like I said, fan base things, these are probably the same people that voted George St. Pierre versus Josh Koscheck fight of the night at what pay-per-view that was that the fans could vote on fight of the night, and they just gave it to the absolute most pedestrian viewing experience of the evening. So that's pretty much that. Gentlemen, anything you want to make a case for ESPN being MMA Media Source of the Year here?
No, but I am glad you brought up GSP versus Koscheck, because that was a great example of what happens when you just farm this kind of decision out to casual fans. And I feel like a dork saying casual fan in 2020, but I'm talking about the type of fan who is just going to vote for the name they recognize or the face they recognize. I mean, who won Coach of the Year at the World MMA Awards this year?
Trevor Whitman.
Trevor Whitman. What did Trevor Whitman accomplish as a coach this year, other than being the visible coach that the casual fan sees on ESPN on the broadcast. Like his best thing that happened this year was Rose Namajunas won a fight.
I gotta think Gaethje beating Ferguson.
Gaethje, yeah.
That'd probably be his biggest feather.
Okay, I don't see that making him a landslide for coach of the year. What he is the most visible coach of the year to the casual fan.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what these awards have become. So, that's why nobody heard about it, because nobody gives a shit.
It's weird how it's a popularity contest.
Mm-hmm.
It shouldn't be. If we as the media and people want to view it as some sort of impartial MMA awards, kind of like how people wish the UFC Hall of Fame wasn't a UFC Hall of Fame, was an MMA Hall of Fame. The World MMA Awards are not that. They're not. It's to the point that it is such a popularity contest that what can we hope? What could any outlet, what could the Mac Life or the Athletic hope when ESPN, just the 4 letters, is such a big name? People see that and go, oh, ESPN is great. They have a TV channel. Like, I understand just how hard these ESPN MMA folks work. I know they work a lot. They work very hard. They do plenty of things to get together, but at the same time, it is the broadcast arm of the UFC. So therefore, it is not an independent media organization covering the sport, which I believe is what media source of the year shouldn't be. Because at this point, ESPN is public relations. There's not journalism to be done with the big quotes. I mean, I will say this without question. I am not a journalist. I'm not. That's not my line of work. It's not what I do. But I know plenty of people in the industry that are, and actually go out and find leads and do the research. And Ariel Helwani at one time was a journalist, 100%. He worked hard. He grinded like James Lynch does now, just always working, always doing something. But now he's a personality. And that's if he were in contention for award, it should have been a personality of award of the year award. But Joe Rogan's going to win that every year because Joe Rogan's Joe Rogan. Like Joe Rogan's that kind of name. And it almost feels sad because I was speaking to another colleague at another outlet saying to him, I hope ESPN doesn't win MMA award, not because they're not a good outlet, because they don't do good work, but because they're not a media outlet in the the very definition of the term, because they don't cover it from an objective standpoint. They can't. It's in their best interest to cover the UFC favorably, and it's in the UFC's best interest to give them the information so that this top story gets the biggest coverage at the very beginning as soon as it can. That's why Sherdog.com no longer gets the breaking big scoops of big fights to happen, because ESPN is ESPN. They can put that on the banner. They can throw that on Sports Center. There's all the different ways to get people interested. So, of course, it's a juggernaut. How can anybody compete with that? And it's too bad, but since ESPN is such a big name, what are you going to do? So it's almost behooves anybody viewing them to go, well, it's some award ceremony. Oh, hey, there's Dolph Lundgren. Well, that was fun. All right, let's go home. That's all I really took away from it.
Yeah, I can tell you, as someone who was at that award show with Dolph Lundgren hosting, man, you talking about somebody who seemed over it about 15 minutes into the show. He was done with that shit. Totally done with it. All right, fellas. So moving on here, we had some interesting news develop. Now we did talk about this. Like I definitely remember tossing this out as a possibility when the roster cuts were announced, and Dana was saying they were going to slash a whole bunch of names that you might recognize. Anthony Pettis was one of the first people to come to mind. He gets a stunning win over Alex Morono, and a couple days later, he is no longer with the UFC. They decided to part ways mutually, as the press release stated, and he was picked up by PFL just, I think, the day after that. So now with him in the PFL lightweight tournament, is he the front runner to win that $1 million prize, fellas?
No.
He's got tough competition there. I mean, Natan Schultz, I think he was like the 2019 champ.
And the 2018 champ.
Yeah, Marcin Held and Oliver Alban Mercy. I always mess up his name, but you know who I'm talking about. Yep. The mustache dude.
The Canadian gangster.
Yeah. So I mean, he, of course, like you were saying before, and he could decision anything happens in MMA, and he could decision his way to the $1 million. But I feel like I mean, PFL, if anything, is the most unpredictable. Because what they thought Sarah Kaufman and Kayla Harrison were going to get it on, and that never happened. So anything could happen, but he's definitely got some tough customers. That's not going to be easy for him.
To even have a shot at winning this whole thing, Anthony Pettis has to spend his entire time from now until joining the PFL drilling takedown defense. Period. The end. Drilling that and drilling get ups. Get off. Don't let him keep hold of you. Don't let him get a mat return. Just get up, get pressure, get space. Because all of these guys that are competing against him are the pressure fighter. Grab you, toss you around. Natan Schultz, Loic Rajabov, Chris Wade, Islam Mamedov. I mean, Nate Andrews tried, but the point is the fighters in PFL at lightweight division are not going to stand there and let him kick him in the head, because they've done that and gotten knocked out or gotten taken down or gotten put to sleep by submissions. He'd have a better shot at welterweight, to be honest with you. I think there's more welterweights interested in standing and trying to have a kickboxing match, whereas Pettis is going to have to deal with a performance, which you remember when Pettis made his UFC debut and he didn't fight for a title. He actually fought Clay Guida, and Guida nullified him and did that kind of thing. Spoiler alert, half the guys on the PFL lightweight roster will be able to do that better than an aging Clay Guida. So man, good luck, Anthony Pettis. If you can get the $1 million, hey, props to you, but it's a tough one.
So Jay, I want to counter you on
Sure.
that for just a second here, because I'm reminded of Anthony Pettis' rebound performance after that loss to Clay Guida, and that's when he out wrestled Jeremy Stevens. With $1 million on the line, with a tournament format where you can't really afford to take cuts and and have injuries and whatnot. Do you think he might take a more conservative approach and maybe eke out some decision wins to make sure he can get to that final and then start jumping off the fence?
I don't know Jeremy Stevens is Jeremy Stevens. Like he at one time had excellent takedown defense. It might be surprising, but it kind of subsided as he decided, I just want to stand there and throw bombs. If he throws bombs at me, cool, let's do that. I don't see him out wrestling these other designated wrestlers. I think that's the issue that he may have here. That Anthony Pettis he's more of a grappler than a pure wrestler in that sense. He's a submission grappler. I mean, some of his most impressive performances, his tap out of Ben Henderson, were based on the ability to scramble to make the best of a bad situation and catch a guy, triangle off his back, that kind of thing, which against a gritty, pure, straight wrestler, that's a tough thing. I don't think he'll be able to catch Natan Schultz in a triangle off his back when Natan Schultz takes him down for the 14th time at the fourth round of the championship.
Yeah. All right, Ben. I
just wanted to add one thing. Just to my tinfoil hat just popped up. Does anybody think that these Yoel Romero, this Pettis news, Rumble Johnson, with these cuts that are coming and all the quick grabs of the other promotions grabbing fighters to sign, does anyone think this is a reaction off of the class action lawsuit? That kind of went under the radar. I know Forbes wrote a lengthy article about it and a couple other people covered it, but I just feel like it's almost seems like it's happening conveniently so they can say, no, we don't hold anyone back. Look at all these guys that are signing on, all over the place. So
that's an angle that I hadn't really thought of, and I already kind of had the tinfoil hat on in the wake of these cuts, just as a sign of these are not the kind of fighters the UFC would be letting go if they really had the banner year of revenue that they were claiming 2020 was. Because across the board, they were cutting fighters who were expensive, but not in the immediate line of contention. In most cases, had already had their shot, and they were just going to hang around making big purses to knock off up-and-comers for the next couple of years. I mean, the idea that this might be bracing for, the class action lawsuit, that certainly would work right alongside it.
I just feel like Dana White might have grabbed them. Like, listen, fellas, Yoel, Pettis, come here. Listen, you guys, I'm gonna let you go, but you can come back once the dust settles. You know what I mean?
I mean, well, Pettis, his contract was up, so at least he wasn't cut and released. I mean, he wasn't let go off of multiple losses and title losses and stuff. Yeah, that's it's an interesting point, because then the UFC can objectively say, look at the Sherdog rankings.
Mm-hmm.
2 or 3 of the top 10 fighters in the world are not with us. They were Bellator, PFL, etc. And it could be a strategic move, but it does. I hearken it back to, and I'm going to call it this till the day I die, the Liz Carmouche effect. And it's what Duffy said. It's the getting rid of contenders that had their shot, didn't make it, or did make it, and they're just, the UFC is tired of giving them cracks at the title while giving them 6 figures apiece to knock out Alex Morono or beat up Alex Morono.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if that had a lot to do with it, but I think that it would explain why they haven't bought any more promotions in quite some time. Because to know that Bellator, like, money had to be reinvested into Bellator, and there was some sort of change in management and ownership and whatnot, and then PFL had to get investor capital and stuff to keep afloat. I mean, those sound like the prime conditions for Zuffa to do what it does, like they did Pride and LFA and WEC and the host of other promotions that they acquired over the years. Now, as far as the roster, I'll just go ahead and borrow a phrase from Twitter, the puppy mill of the Contender Series. The fighters are just a lot cheaper. And while they are actually like the ATM for Endeavor, which has a mountain of debt behind it, they're cutting back cost, and they're just trying to get as much flow of money into the building as possible, and having someone like Anthony Pettis make 200, 300 grand or whatever, when he's not necessarily going to be a pay-per-view star anymore, probably just doesn't fit too well with the accountant. So he's gotta hand him his walking papers on that account.
I mean, Alex Perez this is an example I really would love to know, because Las Vegas, or Nevada, it's the state, has stopped requiring purse salaries to be disclosed at the events. So we used to have a good snapshot as to how much fighters are making. Alex Perez, for season 1 of Contender Series, the first Contender Series guy to fight for a title, was in his 8th UFC bout. You couldn't imagine him making more than like 24 after 6 wins in the promotion, probably 24, maybe 30 grand, which that is bargain bin cheap for a bona fide contender that has beaten a couple other top 10 guys, and Juicy A. Formiga, which we're just going to cast aside because we don't want to deal with him anymore. It is that puppy mill, and I was so, and I said this on the show way back when, I was pumped for the Contender Series. I liked the alternative to the Ultimate Fighter. Simple, straightforward. Here's the process. Here's our story. We get in, we fight, we get out. Contract, yes, no, we're out. Done. 2 hours, sweet package. Mm-hmm. But it has turned into something scary now. It has turned into almost an institution that makes me kind of nervous, because it has developed fighters that we like right now. Kevin Holland, product of the Contender Series. Jeff Neal, a whole bunch, Edmund Shabazi, a lot of people like him. But at the expense of some of these top names, it's you wonder when the fans and the media are going to start going, okay, I'm not sure if it's worth signing 1-0 Danielle Wolf at the expense of letting go somebody else.
Yeah, definitely good points there. So let's keep things pushing, because we have a name who we definitely will discuss as far as KO of the year is concerned when we have that discussion. I think that one's going to be on the docket for next week, if I'm not mistaken. But anyway, Joaquin Buckley, he is matched up against Alessio di Chirico. Probably messed up that name, but you know how I operate over here. But di Chirico is on a 3-fight losing streak. So what exactly is the strategy here as far as the matchmaking is concerned for Joaquin Buckley?
I mean, if I can go first, I think it's either one or two things. It's COVID matchmaking, because logistically that's all they could grab, to set it up for whatever, however they do their matchmaking, or they're trying to keep they are in the star building business, and they probably want to give Buckley a chance to do another one of his Taekwondo finishes or some other crazy knockout. So that's the only reason I can think of it if I'm trying to be not a dick to Di Chirico or however you say his name.
Yeah.
About
I mean, I think Di Chirico in terms of where he is right now is a step back competitively for Buckley compared to both Impa Kasanganay and Jordan Wright. So this really can be nothing but just looking to pad the highlight reel a little bit more, build some hype around him. I mean, with Buckley, they clearly can tell that they have a potential star on their hands, a potential highlight machine, but his thing has never been that he's unbeatable. I mean, he lost to Kevin Holland in his UFC debut. The first time he pinged my radar was getting completely wrestle fucked at welterweight by Logan Storley. They can't just move him up the ladder in the normal fashion because he'd probably lose his next fight. If they want to maximize what they can get out of Buckley, if they can keep him kind of hovering in that same area, maybe let him pick up another couple highlight finishes and then step into a big matchup somewhere, that's probably the best they can do with him. I mean, unless I'm wrong and anyone here sees Buckley as a future middleweight title contender.
No, I'm with you on this one, Ben.
Yeah, it's interesting because I see the path of Buckley. If carefully managed against other strikers, he can do well. If matched against other counter strikers, he may have a bad time. Like, this is Buckley's style. I'm going to run at you, and I'm going to throw bombs at you. And I might even throw up a head kick every now and then. Now, if you're not out of the way, I'm going to hit you with them, and you're probably going to fall down. Now, that's a great strategy until you run into guys that don't fall for that anymore. And that's, I don't know if he has a ceiling. We haven't seen him. We've seen him tested in very strange ways, like his debut against Kevin Holland in August. By the way, this is when he made his debut for the UFC, was in August. So it's only, been 5 months since we've seen Buckley burst onto the scene. It's an odd matchup because Di Chirico isn't a chinny fighter. This is a guy who took everything that Mahmoud Muradov had, who's the guy that's managed by Floyd Mayweather, the spinning kick guy, very fascinating, really hard-hitting striker, took everything Muradov had and started beating him in the third round and won the third round against him because Muradov got tired. This is a trap fight. This has all the makings of a hype derailing trap fight, which harkens back to what we've discussed and what Lev Parnasky of Sherdog discussed, or Pizarski, I'm sorry, I can't get that right, is that matchmaking is very strange these days, in that I don't feel there's a win-win outcome in this fight. The best that happens is Joaquin Buckley spin kicks this guy in the face. That is the best case scenario, but then he's done it against a guy on a 3-fight losing streak. So it isn't a marquee win. It isn't a banner win. The only thing he can say, I knocked out a guy who's never been knocked out, because Di Chirico has never been knocked out before. But it's not a name. It's not a statement win. It's not something that can really bolster his resume other than adding another win to his record. And at the same time, when Di Chirico wins, if he wins, what do they do with him? They can't match him up against somebody better. He got beaten up by Kevin Holland already in June last year, Muradov and Zach Cummings. So this isn't a guy who the UFC should have much faith in. So this feels like the kind of matchup where the UFC is booking this guy, hoping Di Chirico, trying to snap a losing streak, will get a little silly, get a little reckless, walk into a shot and get knocked out. But you know how these things go. I'm going to go Di Chirico second round TKO and just throw the pipe wrench in it.
All right, fellas.
And we will all be watching James Krause's Twitter when that happens.
I'm definitely going to have to put him as one of my favorites, so it pops up first on the timeline. All right, so now it's time to move on to the greatest title segment in all of media history, and that is I'm Not Surprised, Mr. Falcon. So anything that surprised you or unironically didn't, let us know. Ed, what is your I'm not surprised Mr. Falcons this year or this week?
I mean, it's from the week that just passed, right? So yeah. So to me,
next week if you can tell the future, but
it was for me. I mean, it's got nothing to do with MMA, and I don't like to get into politics because it's just fucking stupid these days. But the $600 stimulus check, that didn't surprise me at all. I was just like, yeah. I mean, I took game theory in college and stuff, and then I saw just before we started recording that they just approved the 2000. I mean, I'm like, all right, whatever. Throw us the crumbs you're gonna throw us. I mean, either way. I mean, like I said to my brother over the holiday, I was like, look, I don't expect money I didn't earn, so I don't get. I mean, whatever they're gonna do, they're gonna do anyway. I'm just trying to get out of Jersey, so that's it.
The governor of California, or no, actually, it was the mayor of LA, announced that they were giving, I think, one-time $800 stipends to restaurant workers. And I'm thinking about when I was a bartender and stuff, like $800, like for all this time, like $800, man, I'd laughed you out the damn building. What you supposed to do with $800 in Los Angeles?
Yeah, I can't even get the PS5. I can't even get the PS5 with that money because it's not.
You'd be lucky if that's half your rent over here. That's nuts. Yeah, man. Ben, what's your I'm not surprised Mr. Falcons moment this week?
Hey, I believe this may actually have been announced a little over a week ago, but we didn't talk about it last week. So in the storm avalanche of UFC fight pairings announced in the last week or two, I couldn't help but notice that we are about to witness the return of UFC welterweight, MMA photographer, podcaster, videographer, all-around media personality, Mike the Truth Jackson, friend of the show. Excited to see him back since he is on a one-fight winning streak in the UFC, having put a definitive end to the Octagon aspirations of Phil CM Punk Brooks, or so we think. Watch out for CM Punk to be back in the UFC in 2021. So I'm excited to see that because Jackson was unfairly lambasted by his promoter in the wake of that win in a way that we've become very accustomed to hearing from Dana White. I mean, all he did was like sit on a man's chest and slap him around the face for like basically a full round, and got the business from his boss for that. So I'm excited. I had no idea this was coming, and he couldn't or wouldn't have told me about it, even when I bugged him, but I could tell that he was keeping in shape for something. So, very excited to see this because silliness aside, he's a pretty good striker. And he's fighting a debuting guy. This is a very Fight Islandish pairing in that he's fighting an American who fought most recently in Abu Dhabi, so a local talent, kind of the way a lot of the Brave CF guys that had been fighting in Bahrain are, were funneled into those events. But yeah, that's it. I am legitimately surprised to see Mike the Truth Jackson headed for the United Arab Emirates here in a couple weeks, and can't wait to see how he does.
Yeah, definitely. Best of luck to Mike on that one. Definitely have to get him back on the show. And I'm still surprised that somebody tried to pair us up to fight. Like, no, I'm not fighting Mike Jackson. I don't want to get my ass whooped on TV. Jay, what's your I'm not surprised Mr. Falcons moment this week?
So in 2021, the UFC will be back on network television, and I am surprised by that, Mr. Falcons. The UFC, there were reports that came out this past week that the UFC is moving. It's moving, I suppose. Its very first January 16th card, which is Max Holloway versus Calvin Kattar, on to ABC. ABC will play host to some part of the card. We don't. It is about little less than 3 weeks away, and we have no knowledge of what is going to be where. Whether it will be ESPN prelims, part of the prelims will be on the ABC. We have no idea. All we know is that we can now call and ruin everything. We can call this series of events UFC on ABC. So the UFC on ABC days are upon us. It's interesting because I guess the UFC won't have to fight for broadcast programming and slots by the time that happens. The college bowl games should be over. I don't believe there's a lot else going on other than, you know, football games, but those are mostly on Sunday. So welcome to the ABC era, I suppose.
Anyone else surprised by how quickly and quietly this came together?
It was.
I'm very, very surprised by that.
This would have been my buried treasure had we had this segment running. Straight up, this is it's so under the radar, right, Ed?
Yeah, I wasn't surprised by it, only because, you know, that last Bellator event, one of the things folks were tweeting about, especially like in Canada, were like, I guess the DAZN deal is over. And I know Scott Coker keeps having to say they're waiting for DAZN to say or do something. And I mean, I say it on my own podcast, so I'm going to say it here too. DAZN was never really interested in MMA to begin with. So, you know, I think that they need to fuck off and just let Showtime, CBS, and Bellator do what they're going to do. And I feel like this move was kind of like they know that Espinoza and White have history from working with each other with the whole McGregor Mayweather thing. And I just feel like that this is them trying to beat Bellator to the CBS punch by, you know, suddenly appearing on CBS. Yeah. So I feel like this is their move to be like, listen, we can't let them be first. We got to be first. And we're already, you know, we got the Disney money or whatever you want to call it. So throw us up there before anybody else. And you know, because I mean, even with NBC Sports, I know that's not a great channel, whatever, but they have put MMA on one time when they had WSOF, and they just picked up the Extreme Fighting Championships. So they see. I think it's just forethought on their part. They're like, listen, people are going to start gunning for a network, so we need to be first with that too. That's why I wasn't surprised by it.
So you're saying the DAZN was never my friend?
Hell no. Hell no. No, I'm pissed off at DAZN, man. They could have done something great with MMA, and I just feel like they dropped the ball. They never marketed it, you know, the way that they never marketed it the way that they market boxing. I mean, you know what I mean? Like come on. Well, what happened to
Ben did not
have MMA. That's all I can say.
Yeah, and that was going to be my next question. Like, where does Gus Johnson fit in this equation? Will he get another network commentary job for MMA? God,
that's actually a really good question. If the UFC will pull on different broadcast personnel for ABC, I don't think they will, because again, John Anik is the top of the top when it comes to play-by-play guys. They could do much worse, but yeah, you got to think that the UFC would throw on like a. Probably Anik, Fedor, and Cormier is my guess.
I'd see that too, but I think we'll start seeing more variety on the analyst desk. Like that's kind of where they'll start pulling in different personalities. We saw when they first moved to ESPN, Stephen A. Smith became part of that team.
Yeah, that's right.
To mixed results, of course. And then I believe with Fox, Jake Glazer and Kurt Menefee. So they started. They found ways to incorporate some of the more mainstream sports personalities into the broadcast as sort of like a celebration of getting on to the larger platform. So I expect ABC to be no different. I wonder if they'll find some way to put in some people that we're more familiar with in other sports. And they've done the Stephen A. Smith thing. I expect to see him again. I wouldn't be surprised if we got Max Kellerman somewhere around as well. I think that makes more sense, quite honestly, than Smith. But Kellerman actually kind of knows what he's talking about when people punch each other in the face. So that would be a much better addition. But we'll see. I'm sure it's gonna be a more polished sort of product, and probably spray painting the blood off the Octagon.
They're going to do that again. You're right. You're exactly right. That you are 100% right. They will do that again. And fighters will have it on their feet walking around. Do you remember that when after the painting, when every now and then a fighter would be slippery because their feet had paint on the bottom, kind of like the Bellator logos that rub off on fighters' feet to this day. Yeah,
just crash craftsmanship right there. So now, and Ben, you gave your. I'm not surprised. It's just your when you dipped off the broadcast, I just kind of got confused. Like, what's going on? But now it's my turn. For I'm not surprised, Mr. Falcons. Mine comes courtesy of the wonderful app known as Twitter, where the intelligent folks of mixed martial arts come together to politely and respectfully air out their grievances. One, Abe Kawa, who you might know as one of the heads of first round management, the manager to fighters such as John Jones, Jorge Masvidal, Anthony Pettis, and Mike Perry. No shock that intelligence came from the Mike Perry crew. He has decided to go at Trent Rhinesmith of Bloody Elbow, and Trent making his comments about Greg Hardy, who of course has become the kind of the whipping boy of MMA Twitter for obvious reasons. Rhinesmith commenting on Greg Hardy and his manager stepping in to defend his honor by pointing out the presence of one Ian Kidd for his former employment at Bloody Elbow. Why is this still a thing? Why are we still talking about this motherfucker? Like, who cares about this guy? This guy, he's trash. Like, you give a fuck if he dies right now. Fuck him. Why are we still talking about this guy all the time? Whenever someone on Twitter has some sort of grievance with mixed martial arts media, especially when it comes to anyone associated with Bloody Elbow in any shape or form, the first thing they go to is, you guys hire pedophiles. Ian Kidd is trash, and pretty much everyone has not talked to him. No, we don't know this motherfucker. He's trash. Kill him. I don't give a fuck about him. May he die. All right. Can we bury this along with Ian? Can we bury this? Why are we still talking about this guy?
And every time it's brought up, it does the opposite of make their point for him. Oh, you mean Ian Kidd, who was immediately within hours like fired and disassociated? Yet you're using his example to prop yourself up for like defending a terrible person and keeping them around. It's the opposite of the point you're trying to make.
It's the funniest thing. It's like, oh man, like I have no reasonable argument, right? I have nothing intelligent to add to this discussion or to defend my terrible misdeeds. Ian Kidd, we pull that one out. That seems to be the knee-jerk response. Like, it's not working. It doesn't work. You've lost the moment you bring his name up.
Yeah, but they do that because that's what it's almost like it goes back to the schoolyard. I ain't gonna say the kid's name, but I remember there's this kid to this day, and I'm an old ass man. I'm probably older than all you guys, but I went to school with a kid that he got his ass beat in front of a lot of people, and they made him eat dog shit that was on the ground when it happened. So to this day, if he gets in a debate with someone from that grew up with him in the town that I grew up with, and again, I'm not saying his name because I'm not trying to put that out there, but you know what I mean? Like, you're going to find the worst thing that happened to bring up if you've got nothing else, and that's why that's happening. You know what I mean? And it's got nothing to do with what's his name? He brought that up attacking Red Smith, right? Yeah. So it's got nothing. It's got nothing to do with anything. Like,
even at Bloody Elbow at the time that happened.
Exactly. So it's like an immature reaction to be like, well, I remember that time they made you eat dog shit. Remember that? You know what I mean? It's like one of those things.
Poor guy.
Yeah, like it'd be like if somebody attacked me because of somebody that went to law school 3 years before I went to that law school, hit somebody with a car and killed them. Mm-hmm. And they'd be like, "Hey, you what about the people that hit by the car?" It's like, what? How there's no connection other than that the fringe pass. It defies description, but these are more than schoolyard bully kind of insults. These are the things that rise to the level of legal claim. This is a defamation type of situation, and done so on a public forum. Trent Rhinesmith is not a public figure. He is a media member. Blue check marks do not mean public figures, by the way, legal analysts. And accusing somebody of being involved in a loathsome crime, including pedophilia, is a criminal thing to say. So Abe, you might be hearing from Rhinesmith's lawyers, and you may not have much of a case here. So you probably want to, stow it. Leave it.
Back a bit, homie. Like, maybe Yoel let him borrow some of that $27 million. Help him out.
Or you work with John Jones. Get on that tweet deleting, like regimen that he's got.
I was hacked. Yeah.
All right, fellas. So now let's move things along here to the speed bag. So I'm gonna put the clock and flex my authority on you, mofos. So you're gonna have 10 seconds to answer the 3 questions in a round robin. Pay attention to the bell. Pay attention to your name being called. So Ben, I'm gonna begin with you. Could any promotion besides the UFC lay claim to being the promotion of the year?
Not as things stand. Something would have to change big time. I mean, warts and all, they have the lion's share of the best fighters in every weight class that they choose to compete in. And
you know, it's kind of a tough situation. UFC put on more events than every major promotion put together. It's just a numbers game now.
Ed.
It's going to be a while. I mean, they kind of are the bar. So if someone does something different that fans can get on, maybe they could, but it'll be a while.
Look at that, Ed, respecting the clock. Right. I like this guy. All right, so next question. You're going to start this one off, Jay. Can Bellator deliver a pack show in Russia for Fedor as his retirement fight, or will it be too late for him?
Fedor Emelianenko is 44 years young, and it's not looking like there's going to be a show this or next year, so I don't think so.
Ed.
I mean, if they don't care about COVID, maybe. Of course, yeah, but, you know, probably not.
All right, and Ben.
I would say that if not, it's more about Russia than about Bellator. But man, I just saw 15,000 people get together in San Antonio for a boxing match. So what do I know?
All right, Ed, you're going to begin on this next question. Off the normal path of MMA, we're going to divert it to general entertainment. So, from your perspective, how was Wonder Woman 84?
I haven't seen it. I'll catch it when I catch it, but I like me some Gal Gadot, so that's that.
It's a respectable answer there, Ben.
As someone who enjoyed the first movie, I was crushingly disappointed. It's really bad.
And Jay.
You know, it's kind of funny the level of bad Marvel movies versus bad DC movies. It's not Suicide Squad, but where do you go from there?
All right, so now it's time for me to change the clock to 30 seconds, and I will answer all 3 questions in succession. The bell will ring just after finish reading the first question. So, can any promotion besides the UFC lay claim to promotion of the year? No, because like they did like 38 shows in like 4 days. So I think that qualifies as the winner there. Bellator delivering a packed show in Russia. Like I don't know. Like if they don't care about COVID, probably, but still, give me Fedor versus Anderson Silva in Rizin. That's what I want. And as far as Wonder Woman 84, the best thing I can say about it is that it was not Aquaman. You talk about some pure gutter trash. That movie sucked. It was absolutely horrible. DC is trash. Good God, DC
wearing a flash hat on his head.
Yeah, like this. Hopefully, they don't mess this guy's movie up. Don't mess this guy's movie up. Please don't mess up Flashpoint. But I don't trust them to do it. I don't trust them to not mess up Flashpoint. Like it's going to be trash, I'm sure.
They got to stick to the animated films because they do all right with those.
Yeah,
you know,
animated films, except for The Killing Joke. The Killing Joke was horrible.
I had so many expectations going into Killing Joke. That's the problem.
Killing Joke is easily one of the greatest graphic novels, and it's especially in Batman lore, like one of the best stories ever for one of the best characters in comic book history. And man, they slapped together one of the worst animated movies I've ever seen in my life. That was absolutely horrible and disrespectful to the source material in a way. Like I feel like Jose right now. I feel like Jose Young's right now. My outrage and what they did to the comic book, to the movie, just disgusting.
It's bad. It's really bad. I'm with you, man.
Yeah,
so
in fact, I could hit up Jose asking about Wonder Woman. He won't have nice.
That's actually a good question. Would it be possible, and would DC think to improve the franchise by using Flashpoint as almost a reset to retcon some of the terrible things that happened, like not have Superman break someone's neck? You know, the little things.
I was okay with Superman breaking somebody's neck. Like I was okay with that. Like actually, I think Man of Steel is the best movie out of the DCEU. It is the most film and a self-contained story that was entertaining to watch. And I've never been a big fan of Superman as a character. That was the first time. Well, besides All-Star Superman and Red Sun. I really like those two graphic novels. But that was the first time, at least in a movie, where I genuinely cared about what happened to Superman. Because like that one with Brandon Ruth, Superman Returns,
forgettable.
Yeah,
trash.
Yeah,
dude. When
with you, man. Though I never liked Superman either. By the way, I always thought he was too fucking stupid for somebody with the.
Hey, don't talk trash about Superman 3 now.
He ain't got no heart neither. Like he got on powers, ain't got no heart. Yeah, that dude, Superman is soft, man. Superman sucks.
Yeah,
but
who gets hurt by magic?
Yes, magic. Like, come on now. It's like Ed Herman Jiu-Jitsu. Come on now. What are we doing? All right, fellas. So let's move along here to actually talk about MMA for just a little bit longer before we get up out of here. Rizin 26 is the final major event of this ridiculous year known as 2020. Are you going to be watching live? I know you are. You're probably doing play-by-play.
I might. I don't know. I haven't really thought about enough of it. I'll be here. I'll be covering it in some fashion for Sherdog. This card struggles. And I don't mean that because it's not a good card, but because of COVID the way it is, New Year's Eve cards are traditionally international gala events. They're the best of everywhere, thrown together. Let's see what happens in this blender scenario. But because of COVID the way it is, it's almost exclusively all JMMA. And with all respect to the competitors, JMMA is only okay. Like there's a couple top 10 fighters, but then you go down to your Kitaokas and you struggle. And the Hideo Tokoros and the oh boy, now we're just kind of going through the motions here. As far as interesting bouts go, I think I'm going to go with a title fight. I think I'm going to go with a Yaka Hamasaki trying to get her Rizin atomweight belt back in a rematch against Miyu Yamamoto, who is 44, 46, is 3 long rounds away from being the number 2 atomweight in the world. Only second to Sohei Ham. I don't expect Yamamoto to win this fight, but Hamasaki is also, I think she's about 38 now. So this is, I'm going to go with an early stat of the week that this is the oldest major women's bout in history, period. That you won't find a major MMA fight between 2 women that add up to an older age. So retirement home / Rizin coming home party. Let's do it.
Right. And any other fights on this card that you gentlemen might be looking forward to, or just thoughts in general on Rizin 26?
Oh, sure. I mean, Jay hit it right on the head. Because as far as Rizin's own roster, this is them pulling out all the stops. This has all their best fighters, and it has a couple little surprises with name fighters who aren't at their competitive prime. This is Rizin pulling out all the stops, but because of the lack of international talent brought in, it's just not what it could be. I mean, the same card last year had a nice crop of imported talent from Bellator. It had Lorenz Larkin like fulfilling a lifelong dream. I remember him walking down the ramp and just pausing for a sec and looking back at himself on the extremely Japanese jumbotron, and I think he had to fight back tears. Like, as a guy who talked to Larkin a couple times that year, and he was like, I'm praying that Scott will send me to Japan for New Year's Eve because that's what I grew up watching. That's going to be missing this year. Asakura versus Horiguchi is probably the highest level fight that Rizin could put together right now in any weight class. So very appropriate that that's at the top. But I think I talked about this last week. We do have the return of Minowa Man, 62, 43, and 8, the man with the mullet and the red Speedo, taking on a 1-0 sumo wrestler who clearly has not read up on his history, because whooping up on 350-pound untrained men is literally all Minowa is good at. I cannot wait. So yeah, flying heel hook, or flying arm bar, after about 90 seconds of giving the fans a good show of, like pro wrestling style, like stomp and slap, striking.
How many drop kicks will be landed?
Landed? I mean, if he bounces off, somebody Wolverine attacking the Juggernaut and like goes flying back across the ring? Does that count? I mean, it landed, even if he took more damage. Yeah, then at least one.
Going with 2.
Okay.
I just want to see drop kicks attempted, and I'm happy.
Yeah. I mean, that's what's great about Japanese MMA, right? I mean, we get to see stuff like that, but yes. I mean, I've always had to work when those end of the year Rizin as when they come on, so I'm kind of like if I could squeeze it in somehow, I usually catch it afterward anyway. But obviously Horiguchi's fight, Gomi versus Kuzi, because I'm still not clear on the standing
match, right?
Boxing.
I guess, yeah. I mean, because they
slappers only, I believe, is the rule set officially.
Oh. So just to see what that looks like, I'm interested in. And I like Hideo Takoro and Shinobu Ota. I'm sorry if I messed up his name, but I mean that guy's a really good wrestler that I'm actually looking forward to seeing that fight, because I mean LC Davis versus Hideo Takoro, I think that was Bellator 136 or something like that. That's like 2015, but that fight was I still have my DVR because that fight is on it, so I can rewatch it, because that was like, for me, that was like a reminiscent of something from Pride, the way that they fought each other, and LC Davis had his jaw broke at the end of it, and Takoro was the other half of that. So I always kind of like watching him fight. So that's where I am with that.
Yeah, I can't say there's any fight other than the ones that you guys already mentioned that I'm kind of looking forward to. But just to watch a New Year's Eve show, it's always fun. Granted, if I can stay awake, that's kind of the struggle there. So if I'm awake, then I will enjoy it. And although I'm sure there'll be fireworks going off in my neighborhood, so I probably won't be able to hear it anyway. But should be a good time just to watch a good old Japanese New Year's Eve show, because they're going to have the spectacle, they're going to have the pageantry. So we're not just going to be looking at fights, even though the fights themselves should be fun. Maybe we'll get some soccer kick knockouts as well for our trouble. So, but now we're going to wrap things up by throwing out 2 end of the year discussions here as part of our 4-week long series, getting these discussions out of the way, leading up to one big summit to discuss it all. So today we're talking about first the beatdown of the year. So Ed, I'll let you take first dibs on this. What is your beatdown of the year?
From all the fights I saw, the one that I can't stop thinking about was Justin Gaethje's victory over Tony Ferguson. Just because it's the best I've ever seen Gaethje look. I don't think Ferguson looked bad. I just think Gaethje finally made some changes. He seems a little hard-headed when it comes to the changes he has to make in his game. Like, it took him getting submitted by Khabib after that to realize he's got to focus on sub-defense. But, if I got to pick a beatdown of the year, my personal one was that one, because, I've been following Justin Gaethje since he fought his way up to the title in WSOF, and I just think I see him getting a title by the end of 2021. But I mean, that's besides the point. Gaethje over Ferguson, that's my beatdown of the year.
All right, Jay, what about you?
I thought about playing devil's advocate or picking one that wouldn't be the clear and obvious pick, the one that I went with, but I'll just take that one for the sake of argument. Glover Teixeira, the most unlikely light heavyweight title, soon to be title challenger. Well, we'll see. Title contender. We don't know when the title is going to be up for grabs for the Jones and the Adesanyas and that whole messes. Anyway, Glover Teixeira fought in a main event against Anthony Smith, 2 former title challengers trying to get back to the big show, and it started off well for Anthony Smith. He did well. He held his own. He put it to Glover Teixeira. He hurt him. He busted up his nose, drew some blood, and then the bottom fell out, and his cardio waned about little less than 2 rounds into the fight. Teixeira kept cruising to the point where I don't know how better to say it, that Tila Tuli was sitting on watching, going, God, I'm glad I only lost 1 tooth in my fight. Like, this is just a hellacious, horrifying, depressing beatdown where how many times do you see a fighter apologizing for beating the life out of their opponent? You just don't see it. And here we saw Glover Teixeira saying, I'm sorry, Anthony, it's only business. Oh my God. why didn't anybody throw in the towel here? There were so many people that could have, should have, and would have, well, but could have and should have thrown in the towel and saved poor Anthony Smith, but they just let him die on his shield, and it was a beatdown of the year.
Certainly a worthy candidate there. Ben, what's a beatdown of the year you want to talk about?
Really, those two were my top two choices. And I mean, if I'm being honest, Gaethje probably landed more damage on Ferguson. It was more strikes, just more damage done to the man. But with Gaethje Ferguson, until the very end, you always felt that, you know what, Ferguson, he could turn this around. The thing that makes Teixeira versus Smith worse in hindsight is that there was no indication that Smith was going to come back and win this. You know, that's what it felt so egregious and unnecessary, which is why it ended up getting my vote in the Sherdog Awards this year. But yeah, both just horrific beatdowns, but one just depressing. You know, I wrote it up for the site and it just published this last week. But yeah, I mean, if you want a narrative look back at Teixeira versus Smith, it's up on the Sherdog front page right now.
Yeah, that was that and the Gaethje Ferguson probably be my front runners. But you know what? Since we did talk about those at length already, I'm going to go to one that we might have forgotten about because it feels like it was forever ago. Austin Hubbard versus Max Roscoff. You know, one of and granted that beatdown really only lasted for one round. That second round where Roscoff got worked over, but it was enough to work him over to where he decided he had enough and could not win. Granted, the circumstances were stacked against him with a late notice replacement at the height of the pandemic, and I believe that was the first Apex Center show. Once the UFC kicked things off, first or second, something like that. So you got to imagine that he wasn't exactly coming in there in his optimal shape to perform against a UFC vet, but still a beatdown bad enough to where we were asking a lot of tough questions about his future in the sport, about the his coaches. I believe Mark Montoya was his coach. Oh, fella, really? He just
that's right there. That's beatdown of the year right there.
Yeah, we're marking it right here.
What was that?
It's also upset of the year, if you ask me.
Yeah. No, actually, if I won, that'd be upset of the year. But yeah, so I think that's something that deserves consideration. It will be forgotten about, but for just this brief moment in time, I've resurrected that discussion. So that's one that we should be talking about for beatdowns of the year. Now, event of the year. Ed, once again, you will have the honors of starting this one off. What is your event of the year?
I know you guys are going to give me shit over it, but I'm going to say it anyway. Not a lot of people watched it, but to me personally, I loved it because they did everything different. I like the inaugural NBC Sports XFC 44 event. Yeah, I like their event. I like that they had a little bit of everything tournament. They had their own little version of what's kind of like Contender Series and featured fights. I just like that they mixed it all together in one event. So that for me, that's the one that stuck with me.
Yeah, not a bad one. That's an option that we'd overlook. I like the way you're thinking, Jay. Which event of the year for you?
Well, this was one that I'm probably going to also scoop from poor Duffy. But unlike that, this past one, I did write this up about in the Sherdog.com year-end awards for event of the year. And I did it because more than the fights themselves, the fights played a factor because we've seen events in the past, UFC 199, that everything was just so crazy and so thrilling. You're like, this is the event I'm going to actually watch over again one day. Because if we're going to be honest, how many full events have you sat through months or years later? It's just not very many, but those kind of events. But then there's the ones that have, in addition to good performances, a really great story leading up to it, and that's UFC 249. Sorry Bellator, sorry PFL. Well, PFL can't even isn't even bringing a horse to the stable here. It's just UFC 249 was the return. It was sports were gone for 2 months. All sports, all of them, everyone. There was maybe snooker was on in some small pool hall. It was not a major event in town of any major sport. And UFC brought it back, and they put together an event that held together. We were worried about it with Jacare Souza and Uriah Hall with the COVID scares and the whole Jacare and his cornerman tested positive. And we're like, oh, wait, Dana fist bumped Jacare and then touched other people. It's obviously, COVID is a easily transmittable disease. So we're wondering what's going to happen here. But they made it to the finish line, delivered some great fights. I mean, obviously capped off by Ed's beatdown of the year of Justin Gaethje over Tony Ferguson. And it just, everything felt good for about 15 minutes after the event. I mean, we were high on it for a while, but for 15 minutes, there were, dogs and cats living together. The opposite of mass hysteria. There was peace in the world. MMA Twitter wasn't mad at MMA Twitter for a minute. The Sherdog forums were like, oh, thank God we're back. Everybody felt kind of unified. So that event took it from me.
Yeah, definitely a good pick. That's actually my pick too. Ben, any other event you want to toss in there for 249?
Really,
Sorry.
Really no other event. And 249 was for me as well. And I think it would have been even on its own merits, even if this was a year where there wasn't one super standout all-timer of an event. I mean, UFC 249 had some mediocre fights on it, but it did have a couple of really good fights. It had a fight of the year contender in Vicente Luque versus Nico Price. It had a beatdown of the year contender. It had some shocking results, Cejudo versus Cruz, Ngannou versus Rosenstrike. I do love that those three shows in Jacksonville kind of laid the groundwork and showed us what MMA in the time of COVID was going to be like. We just talked about Teixeira versus Smith and how being able to overhear the two guys talking to each other made a bad beatdown just even more visceral because you could hear the dude apologizing for knocking the other man's teeth out. Well, this was the first pay-per-view of the post-COVID era, and it was our first exposure to that. One of the more kind of humiliating and humbling moments of the year was Bryce Mitchell versus Charles Rosa, where Rosa, a legit proud BJJ black belt, was completely stuck underneath Bryce Mitchell. That at the time we didn't know what Bryce Mitchell was going to turn into. And we have a BJJ black belt stuck on the bottom, trying to taunt him into standing back up and striking. Like wherever he was, like Hickson Gracie's ears just turned red when that happened. But that's what I'll always remember from that event, and it is my event of the year as well.
Yeah, it's so hard for me not to give 249 event of the year because like it just is 2020. It is the perfect time capsule for what 2020 was. If you go on Tapology and you look at the page for UFC 249 and you see the gazillion fights that were canceled due to COVID or event moved and all the reasons why fights dropped off. I think, if I'm not mistaken, Rosna Mayunas was supposed to be on that card as well to have a rematch with Andrade. Her family members passing away due to COVID led her to leave the card. So you have the personal story behind it. You've got the whole Tachi Palace debacle. You've got what began the talks for Fight Island to start. Like everything that we know the UFC to be right now started as a result of UFC 249, including that wonderful movie that Dana put out via Twitter last week. So like even that was centered around the media reaction to UFC 249. So I don't think we can go much further than that for event of the year, because on top of that, the fights themselves were fantastic when they happened. So I think on multiple levels, UFC 249 is hands down the winner. So we're going to wrap things up with just a quick question. What is your MMA related New Year's resolution for 2021? So what as far as your media work, your own training, whatever the case may be, something martial arts related that you want to carry into the new year?
I mean, it's not for nothing. It's the same one I wanted to do this year, and COVID kind of messed it up for me. I wanted to focus more on learning the whole leg lock game, because that seems like it's becoming its own separate martial art in the world of jiu-jitsu. I mean, I have a black belt, but I'm like an old school black belt. I mean, where leg locks you had to be a purple belt or higher to start doing them. And now, now they're, because of YouTube, you'll get some kid walking in off the street and, try to slap a heel hook on you. So like, I just want to learn that whole thing. I mean, so I hope to do that in 2021. And I got back into striking this year. I don't know if I told you guys when I was last time out here, I tore my pec in 2016. So it took that long for me to strengthen enough so I can start throwing my hands again. So I got back into striking somewhat, but obviously, like I said, COVID, takes a lot of, it's hard to train in during a pandemic. So I just hope that I can pick up where I left off and get back to a regular schedule again.
A damn good goal right there. Jay, what is your 2020 fight related resolution?
So I'm thinking about getting into the leg lock game. No, I'm kidding. I think I'm going to turn this to a little bit of an untraining, on work related resolution. Many of us in the media space, maybe out of fear of job security or just because you wanted to stay useful and seem like you were always doing something, producing something, writing an article, putting something out there. Staying active, worked too much, put in too many hours, devoted too much time to events, whether it's because they were weekly events or just because of everything. And the schedule just turned into a grind, and it almost burned you out a little bit. It almost, left you thinking, man, I don't love this like I did 3 months ago, just because of the sheer exhaustion of it. So what I'm going to try and do personally is take breaks, not in terms of days or weeks or whatever, but just out. I'm out. My phone is going to be over there or away. I mean, it's COVID time, so I'm not exactly going on adventures right now. And it's winter time, so I'm not exactly going on long drives now. But just turn off the phone, turn off the Twitter, whatever. Just let it go. Reboot, reset, and then come back fresh, because otherwise it's a very easy way to just overwhelm yourself and go, I could see myself not doing this, and I don't want to feel like that. I don't think anybody wants to feel like that. So yeah, just take a minute or 12.
You definitely need to do that. I'll add my little tidbit to that too, because last year, like 2019 was so busy fight wise for me. And all the events that I covered and all the stuff I was writing and videos and everything else. But man, like I don't think I could have got laid off at a better time to just kind of force you to just slow down. And the beginning of the pandemic, just picking and choosing what events I'm really going to watch live and what prelims I'm going to pay attention to, and just spend time with the little guy and play video games and you just kind of be myself again. Feels great. So yeah, mental health is first. Take care of yourself. These fights will take care of themselves. Ben, what is your 2021 fight resolution?
Well, it's actually to just go back to paying better attention to worldwide and regional MMA. In 2018, 2019, even as somebody who was working professionally for Sherdog, I watched a lot of MMA just for fun. Like, I would be the guy who was hanging around watching an Invicta or a Contender Series or an LFA that I didn't have any assignments for. And you could argue so that it would just help me be generally prepared for podcasts and radio appearances, but mostly it was just for fun because I like watching fights. I still do. This year has not beaten that out of me, but I simply didn't have the time to do it this year. Once the UFC started back up, it was kind of like jumping out of a moving car going maybe 20, 25 and just trying to get your feet windmilling so that you didn't just fall on your face. And that's what the whole rest of this year has felt like to me. Even though there was a lot less MMA, I felt as though I was able to follow a smaller percentage of it just because we were so busy. There was never a week off. So it was always just, Wednesday through Saturday, we're talking about the upcoming card and working on that. Then Sunday through Tuesday, recapping that, and then it's right back on the bicycle. This year, I hope we'll have a little bit. I hope I'll be able to breathe a little bit. you know. And while I do play video games and goof around and read books and you know, watch movies, watching MMA for fun is still, you know, it still doesn't feel like work sometimes. And I'd like to go back to that.
Yeah, definitely a good feeling there. So yeah, I guess I'll just go ahead and my training goal. I started training again, you know, once the pandemic weight started piling on. So I was already getting a little chunky, and then the pandemic came and I got ultra chunky. I was like, no, we got to change this up. So I started doing some Muay Thai again, started doing some jiu-jitsu too, but you know, COVID cases resurging around here, just not smart to be training a whole lot. So I had to take a step back. But once things get back cracking, I will be on the mats in a gi. So I'm looking forward to really getting my ground game built up, because it is super garbage right now. And as far as, and I'll just leave the 2021 resolution talk with this. I learned a whole lot by my absence from the larger MMA media, like not being at every event. So I learned so much about like what it takes, the personal cost it takes to do this. And it's worth it. It was worth it for me because I love doing it, but it may not always be that way. So you just got to know your worth, and that's the key thing. For all you guys out there and all you ladies out there that are aspiring to be in MMA media, and you want to sign up to write for a website, and you want to work on a blog or do your videos up, do your thing, build your brand, put in the work, be disciplined, but know your worth. Don't go out doing a bunch of extra work for free. Don't go undervaluing your time for content to make someone else money. That is not the way to go about this. At least to go about it and feel fulfilled and feel sustained and take care of your real responsibilities. Because I can guarantee you this, I feel a lot better now doing this show, knowing that my bills are paid, knowing that my family is taken care of, as opposed to the rat race that I was pushing myself into. And if I jump back out in that rat race, best believe that the family is taken care of. So remember your priorities. Remember your worth is number one. You can always do this for free. You can always do this for fun, for yourself. Notice this Walkout Network is my channel. I started this, and I got two of my closest confidants in the media world to join me. And this is a journey and of friends. You normally see that when that fourth panel is filled up, this is someone else that we respect in this game, or is a friend of ours, or there's a tie right here, and we're all working toward building each other up. Remember that. Build each other up, build yourself up, build your brand, and don't do it for nothing. Value your time. That is the most valuable asset you have. Don't waste it for someone else's wallet. Please don't.
And if you're not an asshole, come be on the show with us.
Yeah, absolutely. DMs are open. So yeah,
you should pick up your mic and drop it after that. And
yeah.
All right, so that is going to do it for this edition of Unleashed. You can follow us on the Twitter handles that you see below our names. You can check out the homie Ed. His work is on My MMA News, and Sherdog.com. Jay and Ben, of course, you can find their work on Sherdog.com. As far as I'm concerned, you can find my work on MMA On Point and the Body Lock. So that being said, like, subscribe, share, tell a friend to tell a friend, tell that friend to tell 10 more friends. Stay beautiful, stay positive. Well, 2020 is over, but don't get too excited, because 2021 might be some bullshit too. But still, stay sexy. I'll see you when I see you. Peace.